Welcome back, everybody. Today we're doing something a little bit different than what we typically do here on the channel. I tend to focus on one product, review that solely, and then not really do comparisons. However, today we're going to do something totally different. And the reason for that is just what is going on in the market as well as viewer feedback. So for years now, I've gotten requests to review the primary arms variable power scopes, and that we're going to do today, and we're going to kind of do them all at once. Now, I actually have had this scope here. This is the 1:6. I've had this in, I think, since 2013 when it first came out. So I literally have thousands and thousands of rounds through this scope. I have like 3 different hard drives with footage on it, all the way back, like I said, to 2013. So a lot of miles on it, a lot of experience with the reticle. And those of you who watch the channel know I'm a pretty big fan of that reticle. It has a lot of capabilities that others just don't have. Some other reticles out there on the market have parts of it, but not all of it. But we have a few different options now that are available today in 2017, 2016 that weren't available before. And then one of them is going to be this 1:8. This one here, similar but not the same. And then we also have the 1:6 for 300 blackout, as well as 7.62 by 3.9. So a lot going on here. What we're going to do next is sort of get up close and personal, look at the reticles, and actually see how the ACSS reticle works. Basically the features that are built into it. I'll sort of briefly describe that for each of these scopes. Then we're going to take a look at the actual scopes themselves and see how the controls, knobs, button switches and stuff work. And then at the end, I'll try to give you guys a summary and some guidance for those of you guys that are sort of looking for it with these scopes, because I know there's a lot to take in, and obviously you guys work hard for your money, so we're going to try to help you guys decide which decision to make and which one works best for you. Before I get into the details of the actual scopes themselves and the different nuances between them, what I want to do here is just kind of give a basic overview of the ACSS reticle. Now, there are several different ACSS reticles out there on the market, different variants that you're going to see throughout this actual video, and then others even outside of that, but they're all based on the same system. So what you have here in front of you is the reticle from the 1:8. So you can see in that donut and chevron there up top, we'll start there and then sort of work our way down. So if you actually look at the width of the donut, that's going to give you a ranging capability. So if someone is laying down prone looking at you, or if they're standing up looking at you, the average person, according to military doctrine, is approximately 18 inches wide. So if they fill up the entire width of that donut, then you can range estimate that they're approximately 200 yards away. So you can go down the list and it kind of works out that way. So for instance, at the 400 yard mark, you can see they would be filling that line up with that distance in your scope. Now, I should also preface this that all of these in this case are going to be second focal plane scopes. So that's going to be when your scope is at maximum magnification. So we'll just kind of work our way down. It goes all the way down to 800 yards, and that's how you would range estimate someone out there in the field. So if you had to range estimate a bad guy, there you go. That's how you do it. And on this one here, on the 1:8, we have the chevron tip, which is really nice because it's an infinite aiming system. It gives you a little bit more precision than the circle that we're going to see here in just a little bit. But moving over to the right side of the screen, what you see there is the auto ranging based on someone's height. So earlier in the chevron tip and the donut, and then the lines below that, we were talking about their width as they're looking at you. In this case, we're going to talk about their height. So the average person, again, according to military doctrine, is 5 foot 10 inches tall, and basically you can just sort of move their head to the top. You place their feet at the bottom and then go all the way up to the top wherever their head is. That's approximately how far away they are. So if their head was all the way up to the 4, then they'd be approximately 400 yards away, and if it only came up to the 8, then so on. So you can see there's still a little bit of room in between there. But that's how the ranging capability works in conjunction with the actual reticle itself. Now we're going to look at the next one here, and this is still the 1 to 8 reticle, but it shows you a little bit more capabilities that are also built into it. If you take a look at the top, you'll see the 8.6 mile per hour moving target. What that is again, according to military doctrine, that's the average speed of someone running with a weapon. So if you had to do a lead on someone, like say you were in an overwatch position looking over an alley and people are sprinting across the alley, you could use that as the hold. So you're going to put that dot on them, pull the trigger, and by the time the bullet gets there, the impact should be on target. Additionally, moving down, you're going to see these wind holds. So you'll see the 5 mile an hour wind holds all the way down. So starts out at 400 yards and goes to 5, 6, 7, and 8. So basically, if you have a 5 mile an hour full value wind, meaning the wind is blowing across you from left to right or right to left and not at an angle, just straight across you at a 90-degree angle, that's where you're going to hold. So if that's 5 miles per hour off, for instance, at 700 yards, you did your ranging, so you're going to hold your reticle there, and you're also going to hold it over to the right, and that will allow the wind to bring the bullet right on target at 700 yards. Now, of course, 5 mile an hour wind isn't the only wind you're going to see out there in the real world. So if it's a little bit less, if it's 2.5, you can kind of hold in between. If it's 10 miles an hour full value wind, you can double it and hold out like that. So those are some extra properties that are built into this reticle that you guys can use on the field without having to do math. Now, all of this is predicated on the 100-yard 0.4556 that I've been talking about. Of course, these scopes will also work with other calibers, and I definitely urge you to look at your manual. I could go through each one of them here, but this would be a 40-minute video. So it shows you how to zero it with different calibers. Like, for instance, I know the 1 to 6 will work with 300 blackout and 7.60 by 3.9. If you look at the actual manual, it will show you how to do 300 blackout subs as well as supersonic, which it's actually calculated for. And like the 1 to 8, for instance, I know you can do it. You can dial it in for 9mm, a lot of 9mm loads at close distances, a million different rounds, and it'll actually show you, for instance, if you use an M80 ball with 308, I think you zero an inch higher, something like that. I could be wrong there, but it tells you exactly what to do. So that way your BDC works across different calibers. Here we see the reticle for the 1 to 6, a couple differences from what you just saw, but the same principles that we talked about are going to apply across the board. One difference of the 1 to 6 versus the 1 to 8 is that the entire red portion that you see here on your screen is illuminated, whereas on the 1 to 8, just the chevron and the donut are illuminated. But you can see here that it has a dot, which is not quite as precise as the chevron. And of course, off to the right, we have the same sort of vertical ranging capabilities. And here we have the reticle for the 300 blackout and 7.62 by 3.9. Like I mentioned earlier, this is for supersonic loads, but there is in your manual the way to use it in different holdovers or subsonic loads as well. And you can see really it's going to be the same principles overall on this scope, though. The illuminated part is just the chevron. I kind of like that. I personally prefer either just the chevron or the chevron and donut to be illuminated because it really does dry your eye to that point, particularly when you're using it in CQB or very close-up distances. Hopefully those reticles didn't bore you to death, and now we're going to get into the details of each scope individually. So this is the 1 to 8 in front of you. I left the original caps on this one to actually show you. It does come with scope caps, both front and rear. I generally tend to take them off or just leave the front one on, as you guys have probably noticed throughout the video. So again, this is the 1 to 8 here, and this is also going to be the 1 to 6, and this is the 5.56 one. And you can kind of see the size differential already starting, and we're going to expand upon that here. Again, this is the 1 to 6 with the 300 blackout, so I should probably order them this way, actually, rather. So sort of from largest to smallest. So there's 300 blackout up top, 1 to 8 right here, and then the 1 to 6 at the bottom. If I can actually adjust this, I'll have to pull my camera out so you guys can see that there. So the 1 to 6 with the 5.56 is actually the largest, and then you have these two up here, which are a very similar body style, being the 300 blackout 1 to 6 and the 1 by 8. For simplicity's sake, we moved the 300 blackout one off to the side now that you guys already saw it. And one thing I should point out is that there is a weight difference between the two as well. So the 1 to 8 is actually lighter than the 1 to 6, which is sort of counterintuitive. So the 1 to 8 here is going to come in at 16 ounces on my scale right on the dot, and the 1 to 6 is going to come in at 17.5 ounces on my scale. That's with the battery, and we should point that out. The battery there is a CR 2032 battery. We'll put a link down below, but these are pretty common. Years ago, you used to have to just order them online. That's where I get mine, but I actually saw them in Walmart the other day. So they're getting out there a little bit more than they used to. Both scopes have cap turrets, and the adjustments on both of them for windage and elevation are going to be half mil, so approximately a ½ inch at 100 yards. So the clicks on them are pretty tactile, pretty audible, not like anything to write home about. They're not super mushy. I know I used to have the Gen 1 1-6, and they were quite mushy on that one. I actually never reviewed it because I wasn't a big fan of it, but these ones are much improved in that regard. So you definitely know when you're making the click, and haven't had any issues there. They're illuminated like we mentioned earlier. They go from 1 to 11 in terms of illumination settings. Now here's where we get into a little bit of a difference between the 1-6 and 1-8. So the 1-8 here, in my opinion, is daylight bright, I should say. I know people always, have that question out there on the forum. I'm going to roll in a picture here, which is about as bright as it could possibly be during the day. And the reticle, the illuminated portion definitely jumps out. You still see it without issue, even in bright sunlight. Now the 1-6 is not, I mean, it depends. Like, so if you're in sort of like dawn dusk, of course, you could absolutely see it, but it's not as bright as the 1-8. So that's sort of one of the advantages going for the 1-8 versus the 1-6. And we'll get into a few other advantages, I guess, while we're talking about that. So for the 1-8, of course, it costs a little bit more money. This one here is going to be approximately $379, depending on where you look around, versus the 1-6, which is going to be in the $269 range. So cost advantage, of course, it's going to go to the 1-6, and there's some other pros and cons as well. Of course, the 1-8, like we talked about, has that chevron versus the dot here on the 1-6, and the 1-8 has a more true 1x. Now, we talked about this before in many different videos. I don't really believe that there's a variable power scope out there on the market that actually has a true 1x, but the 1-8 here is much closer to the 1-6. If I had to sort of, I guess, give a number to it, I would say the 1-8 down here is probably 1.15, 1.2x, and this one would be like a 1.25x, if that makes sense. I have no idea if that number is accurate. That's just what I've noticed in my personal observations. So I'm putting the caps back on so you guys, I guess, can see how that works. Very easy, no issues with that at all. The illumination clicks are very positive. You know what you're getting. One thing I've pointed out in many other reviews that I do like is if you look here on the illumination settings, it's just the actual illumination itself. So here's 0, and then you turn it on 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. The thing I like is I tend to like an intermediate setting where you can kind of just leave it in between, say 3 and 4, and then turn it right to 4 without having to go through the rest of them. But again, these are budget scopes, so that's a feature they don't offer. Maybe on future models they will. The actual turning knob here is very smooth. Once you get it, it will sort of break in the more and more you use it. But even at first, it's very smooth and quite usable. So no issues there. Both scopes, of course, have the eye focus ring here, because not everyone's eye are the same, and when you're setting that, you want to make sure that you set it so that your reticle is as crisp as possible. With me, I have 10 really good eyes actually, and I don't ever bring them out, or almost never I should say, but I know a lot of people out there who have eyesight that's not quite as good as it used to be really do like that adjustable eyepiece here on the rear. One thing I always get asked about if I don't mention it in videos is the actual mounts used throughout this review. So of course we've used this on a ton of different guns throughout the years we've had these scopes in, but predominantly you're going to see them on either this mount here, which is the American Defense Manufacturing Recon mount, really good mount. Both these of course are 30mm, because all these scopes are 30mm mounts, and this is the Geissele Super Precision mount. This one's obviously a little bit more expensive because it's got a lot of machining and stuff, fancy stuff going into it, but it's a great mount, and I may review it one day. But I've been using the American Defense mounts for years, and they're great for the money. Really, you're not going to go wrong either way. I think we hit the major highlights there for these scopes. Now I'm going to give you kind of my thoughts on each of them. So this is the 300 blackout 1-6. This is the Gen 2. They used to make a 7.6239 and 300 blackout 1. Gen 1. I actually have it. I've used it here on the channel before. And this one is a little bit different than the Gen 1. One big difference is going to be the eye relief on this. So the reason I bring that up is that it works extraordinarily well on AR-15s, like 300 blackouts, 7.62 by 39 rifles, if they use AR mounting type setups. But when you're using this on an AK, one thing to keep in mind is the eye relief is a little bit long. So For me, I'm 6 feet tall, and if I'm using a sort of Wasser style or Warsaw Pact style stock that's real short, if I'm down in the prone position, sometimes my eye can be too close to it and I have to sort of pull my head back to get a proper eye relief. Now, if you're using a NATO length stock, or if you have like a Magpul Zhukov where you can adjust it out, it works perfectly in that application. Pair it with like an RS Regulate mount and it's going to do awesome and be one of the more precise, more useful scopes out there for AKs, but that's just something to keep in mind, at least in my use, that I've noted over the years. But other than that, really good scope and no issues with it at all. And I think we covered the reticle. I like the simple reticle actually on that one a lot. Now, I know what a lot of people came in here to watch is these two scopes and see like which one should you get, right? The 1:8 or the 1:6. So I went over some pros and cons and differences in the reticles, and I think I mentioned, I did, that the 1:8 has a true 1x, if you will, if that makes sense, a little bit closer to it. One of the advantages it has is it is also a little bit quicker, and that's probably why. A little bit quicker when you're at close-up distances. So, you know, if you're in a home or an area where the target's very close, it definitely is quicker on target than the 1:6. Of course, the 1:8 also gives you 2 extra magnification power. So if you're shooting out at distance, that's obviously helpful. So I've used this on a number of 100-yard sort of accuracy tests for different rifles over the years. And one thing I noticed is that I can absolutely see the holes poking into the target even if it's not in bright sunlight. So some scopes that don't have great glass, I can use the scopes for that test and be just fine, but sometimes even if it's in the shadows or something like that, I can't see the holes going into the target. With this, I always can. So sort of just to speak on the glass clarity issue. One advantage that the 1:6 has over the 1:8 is the eye box. Okay, so for those that don't know, the eye box on a scope is basically if you're up on the gun and you're not in the standard traditional shooting position where your head's in just the perfect spot, sometimes you can get shadowing. Okay, so you'll have shadowing coming in on the edges of the scope when you look through it. So you need to readjust your head and get your proper eye relief and your eyes centered behind the scope as it should be. So the 1:6 is definitely, without question, more forgiving in the eye box. The 1:8 has a real narrow eye box, and that's one of the major downsides to it, in my opinion. So if you're just shooting at a range or standing up in prone positions, you should never really notice it. But if you're like a 3-gunner and you have to shoot from awkward positions, sometimes like roll over prone, off barricades, down a hill, things like that, you may notice it and it could be an issue for you. So those are really the big differences, and of course we have the price difference. There's about $110 difference out there on the street, and of course we'll put links to all these scopes down below so you guys can check them out. But which scope should you get? It really just depends. I think a lot of people with the AR-15, realistically speaking, aren't shooting much beyond 300. So either one, in terms of magnification, will get the job done at that distance. The 1:8, like I said, tighter eye box, but you have the extra magnification for a little extra clarity. And on a smaller target, if you have like a 2 or 3 inch plate at 300 yards, the 1:8's your friend over the 1:6. But if you do a lot of dynamic shooting, running and gunning and stuff like that, and need that more forgiving eye box, I think the 1:6 could be nice. And if you're doing a lot of low light shooting, the 1:8 has a little bit better light transmission, at least to my eye. So there's all these pros and cons, right, of what you want. And of course, the 1:8 does have a more daylight bright reticle. So I think that's about it. I think I've given you all the information I can give you from years, literally years of experience with these scopes and thousands of rounds with them as well. I think at this point it's up to you guys which one you want to get. If you guys have any questions I didn't cover in the video, which I really can't imagine, you can always post down below in the comment section. You can also post over at my Facebook page as always, but hopefully this cleared some stuff up for you guys and gave you some sort of things to think about. And hopefully we'll see you in the next video as well. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And again, we'll see you in that next video.